Luka Nation, let's have a good episode. So, welcome back to another episode of Luka's Tigers and Bronze. Oh my! Today's our fractional episode, and like I said a few weeks ago, guys, these modern guys, these guys that are at collectible held. Josh Allen is the one came right to my mind, Cage. And why is that? Because it's performance based. You know what I mean? Like Ted Williams, 1939 play ball. That card's not really moving. There's no catalysts day to day that move that card.
Unless there's a movie or something like you say. Sometimes that guy's right for a movie. You're right. Performance based, 100%. So you're gonna talk about the Josh Allen?
That's the first thing that came to mind. And I think that's going to apply for Herbert too. I think that's going to apply for a few players that are in the game. And it's going to apply to Luka, Zion, Trae, Josh.
It's funny, man.
The season starts.
You know who it applies to the most right now today? I'm glad we had some technical difficulties today. We were thinking it's Sunday. You might be listening to this Monday morning. It's actionable on Monday.
Dude, my performance today was like it was like 2 interceptions, 88 yards.
No, dude, no. You were like a quarterback where the helmet goes out. Like the technical difficulty. You can't blame that on the quarterback. Every once in a while you see Bill Belichick take the Microsoft Surface Pro and he'll take it and he'll throw it on the ground because the tech's just not working. It's not his fault. It's the tech. The tech's not working. So
I wanted to do that, but I couldn't throw my whole apartment on the ground.
That would have been funny. But listen, so follow me with this, right? So we were going to do the episode early on Sunday, and then you can watch the games and be done. And I was going to say, let's push it back, right? Because my plays, the cards that stuck out to me the most, actually are a great segue you're making with the Josh Allen play. So the Josh Allen gold card that Andrew's talking up, the gold Prizm, was up 37% this week after a 2.7% and a 14% losses the prior 2 weeks. And that's because Buffalo killed it last week, right? Mm-hmm. And Buffalo started off not looking so hot. And then all of a sudden they were great again, right? And we talked about Josh Allen after week 1. And we said, all right, you know what? If people dump him, if people dump his cards, if there's overreaction is the term that we used on it, then there's an opportunity for you to get in there. And if you listened and you bought in on that dip, then there was an opportunity. And why I say I'm glad that we waited for the show, because I have my research from last night, like a whole page of research, all my plays, right? I wrote it all out, and 3 cards on here are from one player, right? And I was going to pivot what I was going to say about these cards depending upon what happened in today's game. And after a 5-touchdown performance from Patrick Mahomes, I'm obviously swinging in one direction and not the other, right?
Do you know who the Chiefs play next week? And I've said this from week 1. Look at the schedule. They play the Bills next week. Chiefs-Bills.
It's going to be an interesting matchup. But here's the fun, right? So we talked about Mahomes last week. Mahomes and Brady were my guys last week that they lost. Mahomes was 1-2. I said, look at him, look at his numbers, and if there's any potential for you to jump in on that Mahomes stuff, right? Go ahead and do it, because people are going to overreact. Mahomes is still very, very good. Mahomes is not disappearing. Mahomes is still going to be in the MVP discussion. He's still going to be in the playoffs.
What's going on over there?
I don't know. Somebody just parked in front of my house. I just didn't know who it was. You want to check that? It's great. You never know.
Have you ever seen the Sebastian Maniscalco skit where he talks about what it's like when people used to come to your house like 20, 30 years ago? You'd be so excited. The whole family would come to the door like, look who's out. Look who's here.
Look who's outside.
Look who's outside.
What's going on out there? Yeah, Sebastian Maniscalco's pretty fun.
Now someone comes to your house. You got a call from the driveway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hey, how you doing? I'm in the driveway. Exactly. But back to the point, Mahomes, right? We said he'd be down. Mahomes had a down week across the board, right? Is it a slow start by the Chiefs? Is it overreaction like we talked about? The flawless RPA down 2% after being up a little bit in the prior 2 weeks. The National Treasures also down. The Immaculate down also. The important thing, though, is the National Treasures 8.5 down 24% since the IPO. That's one to look at, right? It IPO'd at $10. Is now down to $7.60 a share. Maybe you jump in on that one in the morning trading, or maybe you watch it because you think there might be some more downward pressure on it if he loses to the Bills going forward, right? The Bills were my lock of the week in our Whatnot show Sunday mornings every week, and I said 17 points. I don't even care. They're going to double that, and they won by 40. Said they'd almost cover it by halftime, and they did. It's just one of those picks. The Bills look good. The Bills look for real. I don't know, what happens there, offense versus offense, Chiefs versus Bills. But the flawless 9
Chiefs
right?
can't stop anybody, brother. They can't even stop Jalen Hurts
Yeah,
today.
man. I mean, the Eagles jumped out. The Eagles scored some points, but that flawless 9 is down 5% this month. Now with the 79.5 market cap, the Immaculate 101 is also down 10% since the IPO. It's down to $9 a share. It's down 17% this week. This month, excuse me. And we're talking about the 101 there. It's got a $197,000 market cap. Why these are relevant is because you see what happens when somebody has that one big game. They could be down 2%, down 4%, down 10%, like Josh Allen was, and then he has that one good game, and all of a sudden it's MVP talk again starting, and boom, up 37%. Right? It's that rocket, that little bit of performance-based reaction, like you said. And just as we talked about the overreaction to the downside, people will overreact to the upside as well. So Mahomes, it's funny. It's one of those you could probably ride the swing on. If you bought in last week on the down, and you're holding this week, you might be able to sell out in the up now before the Buffalo game, and if he happens to lose, you might be able to buy on the down again. It's just a fun one to watch, right? And obviously, the point you made in the intro here of, performance is going to matter on these cards. You saw that with the Josh Allen. I think you're going to see that basically the whole season with the Mahomes cards. There's more than one Mahomes card out there that you can take a look at. Shoot.
So Josh Allen, right? We saw a perk back up. Let me tell you guys who the rest of his schedule is, because I think he's actually going to be MVP this year. Not just because of talent. Talent's important, having the right environment's important. Emmanuel Sanders is a huge pickup for the Bills because Stephon Diggs is their tough yardage guy. He'll get you a 3rd and 10, 3rd and 15. Emmanuel gets open in the end zone. So I think Josh Allen's going to put up insane numbers this year. But after the Chiefs, and the Chiefs have been porous, Titans, who just lost to the Jets, laughable. Dolphins, Jaguars, Jets, Colts. That's up until that's up until December. So why do I say that? I think you have some tread on the tires, so to speak, with Josh Allen cards. I really believe that. I think he's going to put up an MVP type of the year. He's got all of the surrounding cast. The schedule's easy. I think if I had to make a play right now on someone, people are buying a little bit of NBA. Take a look. Do you see this run keep happening, right? Because I don't think anyone before the season really was certain that Josh Allen would have an MVP season. I think at this schedule cage, he's going to be in contention coming to December. And I think you got a month of run-up with his cards.
Sure. I mean, listen, the thing is it's so early. It's only a quarter of the way into the season. You can make an argument that Kyler Murray is putting up video game type numbers as well, and he's got to be right there in the talk about MVP.
But think about who Kyler's going to play, right? This is a big deal. He's going to play the 49ers, the Rams, and the Seahawks. He plays them 6 times.
Yep, twice.
Josh Allen's going to play the Jaguars, the Jets, and the Dolphins, and the Titans. Those are laughable matchups. He's going to be around 30 touchdowns, 35 touchdowns when he gets to the Buccaneers later in the season.
I don't know. I think they're playing smart with him. They're winning for a championship. You notice they took him out at the end of the game. Mitch Trubisky had one of his rushing touchdowns. There was a Mitch Trubisky rushing touchdown. A Mitchie the Kid sighting. Anybody know what movie Mitchie the Kid's from?
Cage.
Send me a DM. Yeah,
you're an owner of a Jordan Fleer PSA 10. Right?
Great topic segue. Yes, sir.
I mean, I get paid to do this at this point, so I got to bring it.
Money well spent. Money well spent.
It's like you've talked about. It's like the entry ticket, right? A BGS 9.5 is $80K. A PSA 10 is $400K, and that's crazy. But it is you show that off, and it's your entry ticket.
Yep.
What do you make of that sale? Was that a clean PSA 10? Right, there was a little bit of whitening over the edges.
Average. It was an average one, right? And it's sold for $280 plus buyer's premium, right? So what is it, $336 or something like that? I think is what it finished at, right? I think somewhere in that range. So it was still in the wheelhouse of what the Jordan was trading at and closing this week. I think the Jordan on Collectable is trading at $399. This one, it definitely is lower than that. By 15-ish%, a little less than 20% less. But it wasn't one of these So then you add the 20%, right? I think. Or did it go 240 and then close at 288 with the buyer's premium?
I gotta tell you, man, Golden. If you could,
they don't make it easy.
No, man. Tech matters, man. Tech matters. Final prices includes buyer's premium, $288.
So $288. So that means it closed at $240 plus a $48. So 20% buyer's premium. So 288. So that's a little low, right? I mean, it's about where they've been going. But it's a little low. It's a clean enough copy. It wasn't one where you look at it and go, okay, this one's going to be an outlier. It's going to be low, just because it's off center a little bit, which it was a little bit, but it's well within the PSE 10 framework. So yeah, I mean, listen, if you're a holder of shares at $3.99, you're looking at that one and saying, it definitely came in lower than it definitely came in lower than it than the $3.99 trading one. The other ones that ended last night didn't really do that, right? I mean, the Contenders Auto Basket, which trading about 103 each. I mean, those sold for like 99, so they're right in the wheelhouse there for Brady. Nothing else really shocked the conscience as far as like what things sold for. The Durant sold for a little less than what it's trading at as well. But I have a feeling Durant's one of those ones I've been telling you to kind of look into as well. So interesting stuff. But yeah, the Jordan, man. But the thing is, what's funny about it is next auction Jordan go for 200. The auction after that, the Jordan go for 400. It's just one of those weird cards. You just need two people bidding on it at one time.
Cage. So
I do own one, guys. I own one. We got to say that, right? So I don't own a fractional share of it, but I do own one of those cards.
So let's talk a little baseball, right? Because we got to talk. I think nothing. So if I could summarize, I don't think very much happened in terms of vintage. And most of the movement was performance driven, right? So you saw Josh Allen, you saw Tatis slide. Betts is another one, right? So Dodgers are the second best team in baseball.
Yep.
Record wise.
Yep.
But they're going to be playing for a wild card. So
they could get eliminated one game.
Right.
Crazy.
Do you wait? Like I'm instead of betting on that game, like something I would look at is if the Dodgers make it out of the wild card and they play the Cardinals.
Yes. Well, I mean, as we talk today, nothing's settled yet.
Okay. So anyway.
I haven't looked. The Giants didn't even clinch yet. I think if the Giants lost and the Dodgers won, dude, did you just fall off the table?
I'm back.
That was awesome. That was good stuff right there.
No, the Giants are winning. The Giants are winning 9-1.
Giants are winning. See, so the Giants will clinch, then the Dodgers will be in the wild card.
Okay. But do you wait? Like, do you wait till the wild card game? Let's say the Dodgers beat the Cardinals. I think that Mookie Betts play is worth it.
100%. And listen, you're right though about the waiting because what happens if they get eliminated? I mean, one game, anything can happen. One game, anything can happen in a one-game craziness, right? So, it's very interesting to see, what ends up on these, on these things. Right now, San Francisco, Milwaukee, and Atlanta, and then it's Dodgers and St. Louis, right? I mean, so the Dodgers will be home. I think they're likely to win, but yeah, I mean, if they lose, those bets cards could potentially go down. If they win, chances are you're getting in there with, the bets basket.
That's gorgeous.
The gold Bowman basket, right? So it's a whole bunch. It's more than just that one card. It's a basket of cards. It's been down slightly the last couple of weeks, like 1%, 2%, and then it was 8% 4 or 5 weeks ago. So yeah, it's one of those things where if they get past the wild card and he has a good game, a good series, and it looks like the Dodgers might actually make some noise and win again, that could be one of those exactly like performance-based Josh Allen, boom, 30-something% up and reverse course of where it's been the last 4 or 5 weeks. So yeah. I mean, the flip side to that, right, is the Tatis Black Label, which has almost been in the same kind of a rut, down 2%, 4%, basically flat, but basically down, let's call it 5 or 6% over the last 3 or 4 weeks. That one may continue to slide because that team, they did not finish well at all. I mean, they were in that 3-team race there in that division, and they just really crumbled, which is a little bit of a surprise.
They looked like they gave up, didn't it?
Yeah, and pitching is there. Pitching is a big deal, obviously, in baseball. So that Tatis has the potential.
Do you value black labels? Have you ever owned a black label?
So I haven't. I've never owned a black label, but I do value black labels. Although the ultimate value of a black label is going to depend, one, on the card and the scarcity of it, and two, it's going to be crazy to say this, what happens to BGS, right? Because PSA is the measuring stick. everybody could say whatever else they want about who's grading what and, who's second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth. I saw a grading company that looked like it was in a diamond-shaped holder, which is, everybody's got their own gimmick. But, everybody's chasing PSA now. And, BGS was the lead dog for a while. And, I don't know that they ever get back to that. But now you're talking about what's their legacy in the future. Their pop reports, their registries and stuff are abysmal. They're not using
two things that I could see happening, Cage.
Sure.
I think BGS is interesting because BGS is one or two right moves away from actually taking back because they have a brand. They have a brand. They have a reputation. Could you see Fanatics buying them?
Possibly,
right?
Possibly.
That's a good partnership. That's a good partnership. Fanatics does everything that BGS doesn't do well.
But that would make Black Labels really great if they really, that could make Black Labels very, very good.
Second, at the current state, I think it's actually important to have the perspective. PSA wasn't always number one. They've gained the upper hand maybe the last 18 months, 24 months.
The last couple of years. Definitely.
Give me a specific number. How long?
I would say 5 years.
5 years? No, I don't think that's fair. I would go as far as 24 months max.
No, it's more than that.
No way, dude. It used to be 9.5 Gem Mint and a PSA 10 were maybe 70%, 80% of the value. They were
but for certain cards you could potentially send to BGS, talking about like auto cards and stuff like that. 13, 14, 15, sure. I mean, you just look at the cards, right?
When Prizm started printing a lot of rookies, those went to PSA.
But we think about like 2018, right? Like 2018, there's way more Lukas in PSA. There's way more Traes in PSA than BGS, and we're almost 4 years there. I mean, that's 3+ years here. So the 17s, the Tatums, the same kind of thing. Most of those are in PSA. So maybe it's not 5, maybe it's 3, maybe it's 3.5, but it's definitely more than 18 months.
So long day here. We're going to have a short episode, but I came in with 3 bangers. One banger, Josh Allen. Okay, I think that's
Allen's a banger.
It's a good play. It's a great play. He has an incredibly easy schedule. He's going to be putting up 3, 4, 5 touchdowns. He has Emmanuel Sanders. That's one. Mookie Betts. Wait till they win the wild card game if they win the one. And third is look for BGS counterparts. Some of them are trading right on the platform where there's a PSA 10 on Collectable that's trading, for 100K, where the 9.5 version is trading at just such a discount. Look for that. There's a tremendous amount of opportunity. As much as I've never been a fan of BGS, it would be foolish to count them out because if I know one thing, it's reputation and brand is the most important thing in marketing. And CSG could do what they want. They could grade really well. HGA could do what they want. They could grade really well, whatever. It's going to take a long time to overtake that Beckett brand. And Dr. Beckett is a staple in the game. Take a look at that because 1 or 2 right moves from BGS and they're right back. They're right back in it.
So can I talk about a couple things? I love the plays. It's something you also talk about with performance on it. It's funny, man, how fractional lags. We talked about it on one of our episodes this week. And then, again,
I'm so pissed right now, just so you know, dude. Fantasy's bullshit, man. Fantasy football is such bullshit.
This was me last week.
How does Mahomes have 5 touchdowns? Mm-hmm. Jalen Hurts has 2 touchdowns, but he has a few more yards, and they're basically neck and neck in points. I was trying to hold that in all episode.
Depends on the scoring. It depends on the scoring of it.
5 touchdowns. But the guy I'm playing, he had Tyreek Hill. So I have Mahomes, he had Tyreek Hill. Anyway,
Tyreek Hill. Well, that's a nice little offset. No, but here's the thing, right?
It's not a nice offset. Why is that a nice offset?
For him, for the person you're playing against. If you have Mahomes, it's great that he has Tyreek Hill.
I'm glad the guy who
and you know what's funny? He could have had Kelsey like me. And what did Kelsey have? Like a half a catch today? The dude was like invisible. I mean, Mahomes has 5 touchdowns, and I think Kelsey had like 2 catches. So, it could be worse. Trust me. So here's a fun one, right? We're talking about lagging. What is one card that you and I talked about this week that has actually seen an increase? Both of us happen to sell it probably at the bottom.
Your Ronda Rousey top.
Oh, forget about that. A card that you and I both sold at the National, probably at the bottom. We're very good at this. Luka Silver, right? So Luka Silver's going up. Zion Silver's, the Trae Silver's, the same run-ups. Salt on the wounds. I'm taking your attention off fantasy and bringing it to some other pain. So the basket that we have of PSA 10 Silvers, 2 of each, Luka, Zion, Ja, and Trae, right? So those cards went up this week on eBay. But when we were talking about the basket, how high it was priced, do you know that basket was down 22% this week? So while the individual cards are going up, the basket actually went down. It's interesting, right? And part of that is because the basket is overpriced and it's an easy comparison. And even what it's at now with a market cap of 34.2, it's still high. Even if you give Luka $6,000 and that's 12, and you're still not getting the 34.2. But why I bring this up is
I used the card ladder index because I know it's reliable. So
yeah,
I don't need to guess what the Luka silver is. I could just go right there and see what a Luka silver is.
yeah. So and if you use that index, it would tell you that 34.2 is pretty high. But what's funny is, and what I'm bringing attention to on this one is, if you take a look at that chart, right? If you could pull it up, the Luka, Zion, Trae basket, right? Not just for this one, but take a look at what the chart looks like during the week. Pull up that 1 week chart. This happens on a lot of things where people are trying to get out for liquidity. Andrew talked about it last week, right? That people are trying to move in and out of these things, and sometimes it's not the most liquid market, and because of that, you have to actually take a little bit less, right? So if we pull up that 1 week chart, what you can notice is, yes, it's down 22%. Yes, the IPO was 20, and yes, it closed the week at 15.55, so $15.55. But if you look at the chart, and we'll get it up for the YouTube video, it's as low as $14. It's as low as the $14. It's pretty crazy, right? So at one point during the week, you see kind of like one of these little drops down in the chart, and it went down to $14. Pretty crazy.
You know, I have a long day, and you're making me pull up charts.
Oh, you don't have to. Don't worry about it. So
it's already up. The basket case, right?
Yeah, the basket, exactly, the basket case, not the Andre the Giant jockstrap. I don't know why you have a shortcut that goes straight to that. Yeah.
Here's the card ladder value of it, by the way.
Oh, okay, cool. But so click on that 1 week for me up in the top left if you can. That would be great. See that little little drop? So, if you happen to be the person who has a little bit of a bid in there, you can grab these things when somebody's looking to get out with a little bit of, lack of liquidity of these things. Not just on this thing, but on something else. It's just funny. While I was doing my research, I noticed that little dip. And it's funny because you were able to buy at 14 there, and it closed the week at 15.55, which is basically 10% from the bottom. So if you were the smart one that had a little bit of a buy thing in there, you could already be in the profit on this car, on this basket, taking advantage of people trying to get out and grab some liquidity. So that's fun. Only other one I have is baseball vintage. It's interesting because some of the baseball vintage on the platform doesn't do that well. It's a little overvalued. They come down like the Ricky Henderson, the Ozzie Smith. Ozzie Smith's in a BVG holder, I think, so that's a little odd. But if you look at a couple of like the high quality ones, right? You're talking about like blue chip from vintage. We're talking about Willie Mays, and we're talking about Mickey Mantle. The 52 Bowman PSA 8, which is a second-year Bowman from Mickey Mantle, was up almost 7% this week, and it was up 10%, 11%, and 36% the 3 weeks prior. Now, I don't expect it to continue to run like that, but it's just something to look at if people are looking at that part of the market now as blue chips. Same type of action in Willie Mays 52 Tops, which he also has a 51 Bowman, just like Mantle does. 52 Tops is his first Tops card. It was up 6% this week after being up 11, and 36% in the 3 weeks prior. So it's interesting to note, not all baseball vintage is moving, but the guys, the names that, like, if you asked your dad who he'd invest in, not your dad would say buy Yuri Gagarin, but I'm talking about like baseball dads would say it's Mantle and it's Mays and nobody else. So
you think people out there know who Yuri Gagarin is?
Yeah, man. Yuri Gagarin is the first man in space. He beat Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin and and John Glenn. John Glenn was the first one to orbit Earth, and Neil Armstrong was the first one to set foot on the moon. But Yuri Gagarin was the Russian cosmonaut who was the first one to get up into space. So and if they didn't know, well, if you don't know now, you know.
That's right.
How about the IPOs? You want to go over some IPOs? You want to go over some stuff that happened this past week? Your favorite United Center bench flooring is still available. About 20% of that's still left. The Jason Dominguez, it's amazing to me that, it's a Yankee and eventually he'll probably be good. But that orange Dominguez IPO fully funded, a 52 Tops Jackie Robinson, which I would put in the same kind of area as what we just talked about with Mantle and Mays. That one fully funded. The Mayweather that you talked about, fully funded. Mike Trout, Finest 101.
Cage.
Yeah, please.
So the IPOs, they came and went. I want to talk about this guy. Who is this guy?
Oh wait, I can't wait to hear this. Is it Ronaldo? Ronaldo 101 Prizm IPO
Who
today?
is this?
Why? What's the value on it? Why is that what came to your attention?
Well, it trips me out. What is going on with his hair? I don't understand. Why is it shaved over here and then kind of like fratty over here?
It's like mine, you know. It's like it's like he's sort of like mine. He's got like a little bit of here, a little bit of there. So Eddie Plank, what's funny about this? Gettysburg
and he did the
Eddie
whole popped collar thing before anyone popped their collar. So like I'm like, where did that start? So very confused. Oh, let me show you the value on this card, and you tell the story about this frat bro.
You got it. He's not a frat bro.
He's got to be.
Wow.
$299 market cap on this guy from Teak going into his sophomore year. Really going to make a push for treasurer. Might break up with his girlfriend.
Right. So, dude, it's very, very funny, right? So when I was a kid, you could read articles about the T206 Honus Wagner and the second one. So like you pulled up a book and it was like, all right, the Wagner is worth $15,000 and the Plank was worth $5,000, right? It's another one of those T206 rarities where the big three cards, the big three for collectors, and we're talking about, they were called the big three. You know, this was before anybody had even heard of the Ruth Baltimore News and all these, LeBron LeBron wasn't even playing. LeBron was still 10 years old. But all the way into the 90s, the basket three, the big three cards were the 33 Gaudy Napoleon Lajoie. You say it in like a little French, Lajoie, which is the one I told you about. That's card number 106 that wasn't in the original 33 set, and that people who built the set, the 240 card set, they had to write in and say, where's the card number 206? I think it was 206. And they 206, 106, it's one of those numbers. I might be confusing T206. But they mailed it back to set collectors the following year. So the only way you got that card was you had to write in, and they mailed it to you, right? The T206 Honus Wagner, about. People have a
Did
bunch
that
of
take longer than Panini's redemptions? Yes or no?
Probably. No, it was 1 year. So Panini's redemption longer. So listen. So the T206 rarities, both Wagner and Plank, we don't know why they're rare. There's a lot of theories. The cool one, the Hollywood one about the Wagner is that he was like anti-smoking, so he didn't want his picture on a tobacco product. I think the less Hollywood version is I think he was the name player. He was the big player at the time, and I think they weren't offering him enough money to have his likeness on the card, and there was a money dispute. I think it's probably more likely. The Plank, the big story is that there was an issue with the printing plate of his card. And that because there was an issue with the printing plate of his card, it's most commonly found with a 150 series back. It's also got a couple of them out there with a 350 back. But what they're saying was that in early production of the cards, somehow that printing plate for his card was broken. And as a result, it is a scarce card, right? And Plank also was, he wasn't on any of the other Ts. Now, T201, T202, T205. Who knows? People also say maybe he's opposed to endorsing tobacco, like Honus Wagner. There's a lot of reasons, but those are like the big three cards. He also was one of the best left-handed pitchers ever. I think he was the first lefty to get to 200 wins, the first lefty to get to 300 wins. He died really young. He died of a stroke and was posthumously put into the Hall of Fame. Well, never actually saw that honor himself. That he was put in after he was dead by the Veterans Committee. But I mean, you're talking about one of the great left-handed pitchers, Eddie Plank. You think he looks like a Teak brother, he looks like a fraternity brother, but that's one of those great cards, right? I think if you were to type it in, like you probably find articles about it on PSA's website. Like it's one of those like big three type of cards, right?
So that's a few things stand out. I mean, Cage, nobody knows pre-war cards like you do, man. It's pretty incredible, like how you're able to tie in the provenance, the story, because that's incredible. Like I had no idea who this guy is.
Well, when I was a kid, those were the cards, man. Those were you're like, oh, well, if you can't get a Wagner, get a Plank. Seriously, like that was, and it's not Yoga. That's his name.
So a few things. So the Mile High Card Company says that this is, if you cover this PSA 4 up with a PSA 5, this is a beautiful PSA 4, is what they're saying.
Mm-hmm. Well, listen, there's probably not that many. I don't have the PSA website up, but I'm sure there's not that many, higher grades than this. These cards are 120 years old now. Go ahead.
The same theories that surround the Wagner compensation dispute, distaste for tobacco, broken printing plate, are presented with the Gettysburg Eddie, is what they call him.
Gettysburg Eddie said
and
that.
The answers have been just as scarce. Deemed the number one most underrated pre-war baseball card in 2007 by PSA's very own, formerly known Joe Orlando.
So, listen, '07 is undervalued. It was one of those cards where, for a while it was right in there. Same talk about same kind of scarcity. I've seen a bunch of come up for auction though. Recently in low grade, they're really shredded. That 4 is really nice that you just showed.
$299. You are you in?
You just show. I don't buy any fractional, but if that card came across my desk,
hypothetically,
I could buy it. Man, I think people are talking about that. That's look. You see how much like precious metal gems go for and stuff. People think there's only 75 or so of that card ever really made, and then how many of them survived?
That's such an interesting conversation. I'm curious what Luka Nation thinks about it. Like, right, 95% of people invest in players, but this is an investment into a set because nobody knows Eddie Plank now, and there's no chance that people are going to know him 20 years from now, right?
Yep. So
you're investing in that iconic set, which is really interesting. It's a different way to invest, but it could be maybe even more profitable.
I like that card. I think it's one that it's ideal for fractional investing. It's definitely not a liquid market, especially in that grade. It's one where there's probably, higher than PSA 4, a dozen on the PSA report,
And Fleer 86 is a pretty highly printed set, right?
Yes.
Like there's a lot of Hakeems. There's a lot of Charles Barkley.
Yeah, there's
not a lot in the PSA 10.
No. Dominique Wilkins for some reason is one of the real lower pop of the stars. Johnny Moore is a low pop of the non-stars. But you talk about 300 or so for Jordan, and less than that for the other guys that you just mentioned, as far as tens. But thousands of them in in all conditions on the census. Something like this is not thousands of. But the thing is, what you have to balance that with is exactly the reaction you had. Younger people do not care about Eddie Plank, right? And unless people like me do a good job of telling the story like I just did here, that story will get lost. And is that story that compelling? So that's what you have to balance it out. People want to buy Kyler Murray and Josh Allen instead of Eddie Plank now.
Final thing, real quick, guys. Realize not all game-worn memorabilia that's autographed is created equal. Right? Like Mike Tyson, for example, signing a lot of things right now. Okay. But his gloves signed, 15, 20 years ago, his game worn trunks 15, 20 years ago are way more sought after, have way more provenance than him going on like a signing spree now. Same thing with Luka and Giannis. Like their game worn auto stuff is cool, but remember, they're going to sign a ton of things, right? And the things that they're signing, they don't necessarily have provenance yet. So just keep that in mind. Not all game worn and autograph stuff is created equal.
So before you hang up on that one, you talk about game worn and autograph. Do you see what's coming up this week? Is this something you'd be in on? The 48-point game from December of 2019, Giannis game worn and autographed sneakers. It comes Wednesday, October 6th. Should be on the app by the time this is released.
I wouldn't because you don't know if that's an iconic game yet, right? And I think something like that, it IPOs really high because right now it seems iconic. When his career is all said and done, that might not be that kind of game. For example, Kobe had the 81-point game. He had his 60-point game at the Garden. But what's Kobe's iconic game actually?
I don't know. His 80-something point game. I have no idea.
No, I would say his most iconic game is his 60-point last game.
His 60-point last game, huh?
Yep, I would say that's his most iconic game. That's what he's remembered for. So, no one even remembers his 61 points in 3 quarters at Madison Square Garden.
Well, does it add to the lore that he scored 48 points this game in a losing effort to the Dallas Mavericks when Luka wasn't even playing?
This is from the Dallas Mavericks. I thought this was from the Brooklyn Nets series.
This is from 2019. It's where he scored 48 points in the game. So he had a great game. But Seth Curry and Kristaps Porzingis each had 26, and Dallas beat him. It looks like 120 to 116. So it's not. It's definitely not exactly the most iconic game from him.
It depends where it IPOs, right? Like and it depends on the investor. If the investor wants to hold long term and they are a Giannis fan, I think it's a great buy. I just think what I wanted to say there was not all memorabilia, not all game worn is created equal, and people need to understand that. That's another episode. We'll be back next week. Love you, Cage. Love you.